Well, you mentioned the misinformation warfare. So all of us know this very well because we were very active on social networks or on interviews. It's like we were all fighting against this misinformation warfare. Carl, you are doing a wonderful job debunking all the lies. Your show is popular, and I want to hear your perspective as an Asian American, Chinese American in the States. What was the turning point for you to realize, wait, what the media described China is not right? Well, what made you decide to come out? Okay, I need to be the messenger to send the real message about China.
Well, actually, it was that way for me from the very beginning. I came to the United States in 1990 as a teenager, 13-year-old. At that time, I was very hungry for news of my homeland, so I would scour the pages of New York Times to look for any piece of information about China. But the China I read about in New York Times, nothing matches the world that I left behind. It's almost reading like a bizarre world, a parallel universe. I mean, this is not the China that I used to live in. I used to chalk that off to the ignorance of the reporters, just Westerners just don't get China. But later, I realized it's more than that. There's actually an orchestrated campaign of disinformation and propaganda to turn the U.S. public away from a more cooperative relationship or fruitful relationship with China. And that's when I realized for a bicultural person, a bilingual person like me, I feel obligated to share what I know, my own perspective. Because let's face it, a Chinese perspective is not being presented in the US mainstream media at all. And I just wanted to understand people in the English-speaking world to understand the other side, to understand the Chinese perspective, to understand the context, the history and development of China, and why would China act the way it is acting right now, rather than getting their sole source from New York Times, Wall Street Journal.
Yeah, KJ, you are a Korean American. Yeah. We are all the victims of the World War II, the empires for such a long time, and I actually you defend a lot about China. I mean, that's strange. What made you want to defend China?
Well, I don't see myself as defending China. I believe that I'm simply stating the truth, or if you will, I'm defending the truth. And I feel that that is very important for us as scholars, as journalists, and just persons with integrity. I think that's fundamental. But coming back to this notion of information warfare, I have been tracking this for at least a decade. Starting 2012, I was completely focused as a journalist on this pivot to Asia. And what I see in addition to this continuing military escalation is the continuing ratcheting up of the tenor and the absurdity of the lies against China, the kind of extraordinary demonization of China. And I know enough about war, and I know enough about propaganda, that war has several dimensions or several stages. Before there is a shooting war or a kinetic war, there is a pre-kinetic dimension. This is the pre-kinetic war. And that pre-kinetic war is information warfare. And as you see this escalate, and as you see it escalate to the level of kind of WMD or genocide, then you know that we're very, very close to kinetic war. We saw that with the Iraq War, we've seen that with other wars, and we see the same kind of exaggeration and ultra-demonization, which is very, very symptomatic of the strategy that uses when it is rolling out a campaign to manufacture consent to engage in kinetic war. The other dimension that you can also notice is that, for example, in actual war, before the infantry goes in, you send in the air and you create a no-fly zone and you prevent any defenses from happening. The same thing happens on a kind of cognitive level as a country prepares for war. That is to say, it sends in the media and it destroys any capacity for the citizens to engage in anti-war activism. You want to knock out the capacity for peace activism, and you essentially create, as you would a no-fly zone, you create a no-think zone, so no critical thinking. And I see this happening right now around China. People are no longer able to engage in their critical assessments about whether anything is true or not. They take things as given, and all these mendacities around Xinjiang, around slave labor, around COVID, etc. All of these things are this kind of extraordinary escalation that let us know that not only is a very kind of coordinated campaign of demonization, but that it has a very, very specific intent and destination in mind.